Hey Lucio, and hi to your students. Thanks for asking me these questions about search marketing. I've been doing this for about 20 years, and I've had a YouTube channel talking about these things since 2005. So just go and look at Jim Boot on YouTube if you want to dig in deeper to any of this. And it's important to note with search marketing is that most people will have a different opinion about different aspects. All right, so just because I say it doesn't mean it's the way that everyone does it. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So one of the first questions that Lucio's asked me is, what's the difference between SEO and SEM? A lot of us who have been in the industry for a while sort of got a little bit eye roll when we talk about SEM, because SEM stands for search engine marketing, SEO stands for search engine optimization. Both the poorly named acronyms are described to use how we use search marketing. SEO will typically only apply to organic results. Those are results that are not paid for in Google, and also other search engines. And SEM usually refers to paid advertising in search engines. Now, in the case of, say, Bing, you might only, in a lot of searches, you'll only have 4 organic results, but you might have 19 paid results. In Google, depending on the search that you do, typically you will have anywhere from 10 organic results with shopping ads and a few other things. You could have another 10 paid results as well. So the idea has always been to try to get ranked high in Google without paying Google or any other search engine money, and that's search engine optimization. How do you explain the importance of search marketing for the CEO? Well, if the CEO is old enough to remember a thing called Yellow Pages, we'd probably talk about that a little bit. And in that, back in the day, it was a big book with lots of pages and became really good for standing your monitor on. But back then, there were 2 types of advertising in that as well. There was paid, and there was what we called organic. You just got a listing. But the people who made more money, of course, were the ones who took out the big ads. And some of them took out 3 or 4 ads. Now, pre-Google, you weren't going to miss out on that, and you were going to optimize your Yellow Pages listings. You're always going to do that. And the same should apply for the search engines, paid and organic. Now, the thing is to remember with the CEO too, is that you can put a direct return to the efforts that you're doing certainly with paid. It's very easy to do. You can say we're going to spend X and we want to multiply that spend by X amount of revenue. So for us, for a lot of our clients, what they want to see is 1,000% return on their revenue that they do for paid. So, and they're the conversations that we have with CEOs is, well, how much money do you want to invest in this and how much do you want to make? And that's entirely feasible to do with, say, Google ads. And we will say, well, do you want 10 times? And sometimes, depending on the client, they'll need more or they'll need less, depending on the gross profit margin. And it varies between business. But there's a lot of ways that you can make complete sense to a CEO with this by saying, this is just advertising, it's investing in your business. And the organic is going to help the paid work better. You will still get more traffic from organic. And if you're not optimizing both the organic and the paid, your competitors are. So you probably should. And the other thing too is that, and this is a practice I really don't like at Google, but it's out there. You can go and buy someone's brand name in Google. Now, as long as you don't display that in the ad, you can rank above them if they're not buying an ad for their own brand name. And you might have spent 20 years investing in that brand name, but someone can come along and just buy an ad and sit above you organically. So if you are not aware of Google ads and those sorts of things, you really should, and the CEO should be on top of it to make sure that they're one step ahead of the competitor. What are some of the digital marketing platforms? Okay, there are a bunch. And you can get lost, and everyone uses them differently. You can get lost in some of the tools. I guess some of the industry standards out there, the one that we use every day would be Google Search Console. Another one would be SEMrush. It's a great tool, but it's got a lot of stuff in it, and it's got so much stuff. But it really is a good tool. Google Analytics, certainly. We also have things set up like Pingdom for our clients so that we know if a site has any downtime at all, because that's going to affect your ads, it's going to affect your organic traffic, and it's going to affect your conversion rates as well on your site. So you've got to have all this monitoring set up and in place. But I would say, some of the most popular ones are the ones I've already mentioned, plus also webpagetest.org for speed checking, and Google's got a bunch of tools for speed checking as well. So there are alternatives to some of those tools I've just mentioned, but they're typically the ones that we would use. So I would go along and have a look at some of those and find the ones that mean most to you and you get the most out of. How do you pick effective search marketing KPIs? That's a really good question. So for ads, it's quite easy for us. It's about, are we getting the return? And with e-commerce sites, it's incredibly easy. Are we getting the return on that investment in ads? Are we getting 1,000% return? For organic, it's a little bit more difficult because, what's of value to the client? So it used to be, hey, we're number one for X amount of keywords. Well, what is the value of that number one ranking to the business if on a mobile device, there are no organic results for a lot of searches? Not on that first screen. You have to scroll to like the third screen on a mobile device to actually see an organic result, because we've usually got the first screen is a page of ads, so paid position. The second screen is typically something to do with location-based services, or it might be a Google knowledge graph or information or something like that. But typically, your on mobile organic results do not start until screen 3. So it's more difficult to measure the effectiveness of organic search, because we've got some clients that have done content in the past where they've written a blog post or something like that because someone in the marketing team said, there's a lot of people searching for this, we should write a blog post on this, and they'll get bucket loads of traffic on it. Bucket loads. And that's one metric that people will use, is bucket loads of traffic from Google Organic. However, the traffic doesn't convert because they're not there to interact with that site. They're just after that piece of information. So you can get a lot of traffic and it won't convert. You can get ranked number one for phrases that aren't really that valuable to a business, and they can take a long time to get ranked high. So the way we set parameters for our clients, and for an e-commerce agency, it's really easy for us, because we'll say, okay, to the client, well, what are your revenue goals over the next 12 months? And then we look at all the channels and we work out, well, where are the improvements? Where can we grow? And then we look at organic and we say, well, we have to grow revenue from that by X. We're not that necessarily concerned with getting extra traffic unless it's obvious that extra traffic's used. Most sites that we encounter will have enough traffic. What they're not doing properly is the technical SEO side of things and the user experience side of things. So they're not getting the conversions that are possible. A lot of people think that a 3% conversion rate as an industry standard is good. I don't. I think if 3 people out of 100 walk into a bricks and mortar store, I think if 100 people walk into a bricks and mortar store and only 3 of them buy, I don't think that's a great experience for those other 97 people. And the other thing to look at too is that with both of these channels of paid and organic, you've got to go and look down at what devices they're coming in on as well. And you will find sometimes that mobile conversions might be much higher on paid than they are on organic. And typically your organic conversion rates are going to be lower than paid. And that's because you're not as targeted with those searches. You can't be as targeted, but they're still important. You still need to be there. So to measure for us, and we've spent years doing this, we've tried a lot of different metrics to measure the KPI. And I did have one person say to me, Jim, you've just got me to number 1 for outdoor timber ceiling fan with light. It took you a month. I spent X. What's that worth to me? And it was at that point, it was about 5 years ago, I went, yeah, it's hard to justify that value. So we swapped or switched to a revenue-based model where we look at all the channels, all the devices, and work out how we're going to use these things together rather than separating them out into different silos. We bring in UX, SEO, and paid, and we work on them holistically. We don't silo them out. So the same people working on SEO are the same people working on the ads. And I think that's important because I see search marketing as one thing now. And with the dominance of paid on mobile devices now, since about 2013, 14, it's there's been a lot more paid traffic. And if you don't have these two groups working together, your paid and your organic, then what can happen is that someone in paid might decide to do a brand campaign, which incidentally is a great idea. And that is just buying their brand. And some people will say, well, I don't want to do that because I should rank organically number 1 for my brand. And that's true. And a lot of the time you will, but sometimes you won't. All right. So it's important to do that because you can also then target those landing pages that you're sending those people to. But if that happens, if someone in paid decides to do a brand campaign, all of a sudden, overnight, the organic team lose a lot of traffic and they look bad. So if traffic is your metric and you switch on ads for a brand campaign, the SEO people look terrible, even though you might still be ranked number 1 and nothing's changed. So you've got to look at the overall picture and how it's affecting the business, like we would a traditional offline business. And make sure you subscribe to youtube.com/Jim Boot. Thanks.